We average 125, 150 deals a year.
How much revenue are you typically doing?
We average about $25,000 a deal.
It's about $3.7 million. Wow, it's a lot. Let's break down how someone can get to $3 million in revenue flipping and wholesaling. Michael from Kansas City, how's it going, baby?
Good, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on the podcast. I know you are a big time real estate investor. You've also mastered marketing and I guess dealing with like highly motivated sellers and getting niche lists and stuff like that. But before we get into all that, I guess, can you give everyone like your quick backstory?
So I came from the teaching world. I actually got my college degree in teaching kids algebra and geometry. So for 3 years, I did that game, taught 9th graders and 10th graders math, which is definitely a harder sell than buying a house at 50 cents on the dollar. I'll tell you that. But there was something about it. I just didn't see myself doing that for 30 years. Financially, it didn't make sense. It didn't feed my soul at all. And for years, I just wanted to get into flipping. Had no idea how I was going to do it. So I approached my folks and was like, can we just buy a really cheap house? I'll do all the work. You fund it. We'll split it 50-50. So we found a cheap house in Kansas City. I spent my summer away from school flipping it. And we ended up making $18K on it. I took away 9 and was like, this is not a lot of money. But the reality is I made about the same amount of money during that time as teaching. So I had confidence that I could leave teaching and just went cold turkey and went directly into real estate investing.
Got it. So what year was this?
That was 2015.
2015. Okay, so you've been doing this for a while. And like, why real estate, or why didn't you just, I don't know, get into something else?
You know, throughout my whole childhood, my mother always had like HGTV and stuff in the background. And I'd watch all those goofy shows and house flipping where you just make $100,000 every time, apparently. Yeah. But there was just something that resonated with me. I really enjoyed the thought of it. And that was really the only thought. I didn't have exposure to anything else. And fortunately, I love real estate, and it just stuck. Yeah.
And then since joining, like, how many transactions have you done? Like, what are some of your highlights?
So we've probably done around 500 or 600 deals. Probably need to have my team go through that and figure out how many exactly we've done. But we average 125, 150 deals a year the last handful of years.
Got it. And then, like, how much revenue are you typically doing?
So we average about $25,000 a deal. Okay. So whatever that math ends up being.
All right, let's do the math. So 25.
Math teacher that doesn't know.
So you said 25,000 a deal, and you average how many deals a year?
Let's just say it's 150.
150. That's about $3.7 million. Wow, that's a lot. So all right, so let's break down, I guess, how someone can get to $3 million in revenue flipping and wholesaling. But so you got into real estate, and what was the first thing that you did?
Well, the first thing that I did was kind of what everyone else does. Some of those grassroots strategies, you're driving for dollars, your bandit signs, you're going directly to an agent and having them bring you deals off the MLS. And I saw, hit or miss success on that. Yeah. The first 6 or 8 deals, I probably broke even. Okay. So I had an agent that would bring me the deals. They would inflate the ARV. They would minimize the repairs, and I just kind of trusted them. I'm a very trusting person. Oh, okay. And I was doing all the work, and there were a handful of them in a row that we basically broke even. Oh, wow. And that whole time, I'm living off of the retirement from my 3 years of teaching, so I cashed in on that, and it was like 20 grand. So it lasted for a while. Yeah. But then there was this one house. It was in Raymore, Missouri, good old suburb of Kansas City. And I'm doing the repair request. It's almost to the close. We have it under contract to sell at 210. I'm 190 in it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make 20. For me at the time, that was going to be really important money because we were down to pennies, basically. Yeah. I get a call from the appraiser. The appraiser says, I got some really bad news. You're under contract for 210. It appraised for 190. Exactly what I have in it. And something inside of me just broke because I put months and months of effort, my own labor, into flipping this house, and I was going to make nothing, and I wasn't really sure how we were going to make our bills the next month. Yeah. So I go to the side of the house, ugly cry, basically. I'm not a crying person, but that broke me. and was there for a few hours. And finally, I just had to, something inside of me snapped. It was just like, you can either be this person that doesn't provide for your family, just kind of skating by, or you can really grow yourself, become the man that God wants you to be, and provide for your family. And from that moment on, everything changed.
Got it. So you went there just to cry? You were at the property just
No, I was there doing the repair requests for the closing. So I was doing all the small little things that the appraiser and other side wanted.
Yeah.
And I got that call.
Got it. And then, so you ended up selling the house for like 190?
Yeah, we made nothing.
You made nothing?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you said you made a decision to change. Mm-hmm. So what happened after that?
So it didn't come immediately.
Yeah.
But I had made that conscious decision that I will be successful. But I'm sitting on my back deck one day, had no leads. I just sold my most recent deal, and I was basically unemployed at that point. Yeah. I didn't have a lead generation machine bringing new stuff in. So I was like, I don't have a lead. I don't have a prospect. I don't know what to do. So kind of just sitting there wondering what I should do. My wife comes out, kind of kicks me, and she's like, do something. Stop sitting here. You're not going to make any money that way. So I kind of start scrolling through Zillow, and there's a little red dot on this particular listing on Zillow, and it said pre-foreclosure next to it.
Yeah.
And I knew what a pre-foreclosure was, but I had never thought, oh, I could, go talk to those homeowners and make a deal out of it. Mm-hmm. This house happened to be about a half mile from my home, so I walked over there. I knocked on the door, which was really scary. I'd never done that before, but just took action. Yeah. Knocked on the door, said, hey, my name's Michael. Noticed you have a foreclosure sale coming up next week. Mm-hmm. Is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
I expected them to slam the door in my face. But anyway, they invited me in, had about a 90-minute appointment with them, talked through their whole scenario and what I could do to help. And then they needed the night to think about it, and they gave me a call the next morning and put it under contract. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, I assigned it for $50,000 profit. It's like, wow, this didn't come from a lead source I've ever seen before. All I did was look at my phone, and I walked somewhere, and I created $50,000 out of thin air, seemingly. Mm-hmm. And it kind of created a light bulb moment in my head.
How did you know to assign it?
I'd done a few assignments to that point. It wasn't my first assignment, but I hadn't really been able to buy deals deep enough at that point to actually assign it, and I didn't know who the buyers were. I stumbled into a few deals like that over time, but it wasn't something that I was real comfortable with or knew everything about it. But this one, it was a huge rehab, and we were not going to be able to handle it. And I was kind of traumatized from our past few, so I was like, hey, let me go post this on a few Facebook groups, and fortunately found a guy that wanted to buy it, and it turned out great.
Okay, and that was when, like 2016, 2017?
That was 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
And then what happened after that?
So you'd think that I would just go directly after free foreclosures,
nope.
But apparently it takes me a while to learn this lesson. So I kind of kept doing the same type of stuff and gradually got better. But then a few months later, maybe 6 months later, I came across another one of those red dots.
Yeah.
And I drove to the house. This one was a few miles away, and it's like, hey, it's vacant. Well, I don't know what to do now. Yeah. Well, I looked up the county assessor, and they had another address that they lived at.
Yeah.
And so I drove over there. I door knocked that house. I said, hey, you got a foreclosure sale next week. You have this vacant house over there. Is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
They said, crazy story. We went on vacation a couple years ago. I don't remember where it was. When we came back, there were just these strange people that were living in our house. We had no idea who they were. We didn't have the money to get an attorney and evict them and stuff. So they turned off all the power and the electricity. It was over the winter. Can't technically do that, but they did. So these people finally left, and they just couldn't bring themselves to go back, and they stopped making payments. They were like, yeah, we'll come over and sign. We'd really like to net 10 grand on it, and we'll walk right away. And then I assigned that one for 45 grand, and I was like, hold up. I've now done this twice. I've door knocked 2 houses. I've made $95,000.
Yeah.
There's got to be something to this.
Yeah.
That being said, results don't apply to everyone with that much, but I think the Lord wanted me to come across investing style
Yeah.
that I could teach a lot of different other people and impact many.
Yeah.
So perhaps he made it a little bit easier on me to get it through my thick skull.
Yeah,
too.
you're like, dude, I have 100% success rate.
If only it kept going.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You're like, I knocked on the third door, and then no, but all right. So I actually used to work with a lot of pre-foreclosures. So I'll give you my quick story. So like in 2017, 2018, I moved to California from Las Vegas, right? And then I got my real estate license. And at the time, what I was doing in Las Vegas was calling expired listings, right? So those are properties that are listed for sale. For some reason, they don't sell. I would call them as a realtor, relist their house, and then sell it, right?
Yeah.
So I was doing that successfully in Las Vegas. I moved to California with my wife, for my wife, and I knew nothing about California. So the problem at that time was there was very low inventory,
Right.
and the market was super hot. So there wasn't expired listings, right? Like in some cities, there's like 3 a day.
Yeah.
That's not enough to like call those 3 out of the 50 to 100 other realtors calling them. I just couldn't like run a business like that.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I don't know what to do. I got to like figure something out. So I started just looking up like how to get, listings besides expireds. And then I came across NODs. And I was like, okay, what is an NOD? Okay, it's a notice of default. What is that? Pre-foreclosure. Got it. Right. And then at the time, I used to use a website called Redex. It's still around. They literally, I remember it said like new list, pre-foreclosure. And I'm like, okay, it's a new thing. Let's try it. So I started calling. Like my first day, I got an appointment. And typically, like when I was a realtor, if I got 1 appointment a week, that was good. So I was like, all right, that's great. Like I got my first appointment. And then I kept calling. And then I set a second appointment. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I kept calling and I got a third appointment, like my first day. And I was like, I don't think people are calling these people. And then I started asking the people when I called them, I was like, hey, has anyone else called you? And they're like, no, but I have a stack of mail that's like through the roof. I'm like, oh, but no one's calling you. And they're like, no. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is my shot, because I've been in real estate long enough to know that some things like work and then they stop working, or they work and then they get saturated. So I start going ham on pre-foreclosures. And I get really good at short sales and listing them and all this stuff, but just as a realtor. And then what happened was when you're working,
you were just listing these properties.
I was only listing them.
Got it.
I didn't even know about wholesaling or flipping.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was a lot of these people, they didn't want to show the house. They didn't want to do a traditional sale because their houses were dirty or whatever the case may be. Like there was always like random problems. So investors would buy them, and I would just straight up list them on the MLS, and like an investor would call me. Sometimes I would double end it. Sometimes I wouldn't. And then what happened was I started asking the investors, I'm like, hey, like how much money are you making on this deal? And then the first one was like, Brian, you don't need to worry about that. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I'll keep buying your deals.
You were the best lead source of all time, apparently.
Oh, yeah. I was the man. And I was like, okay, that's weird that he wouldn't tell me that. Next NOD that was a super distressed, same thing. I'm like, bro, how much are you going to make on this deal? Oh, Brian, like, investors used to make way more. We're making less now. It's tough times, You don't want to do this. Just, keep doing what you're doing. So I was like, okay, there's something here. The next property, investor makes the offer with me. And I was like, hey, how much are you going to make on this deal? He was like, oh, gave me the same spiel. And I was like, hey, man, if you don't tell me, like, I'm not going to work with you. Like, you can find a different realtor.
Yeah.
And then he was like, well, if we're lucky, we're going to make like 60 grand. And I was like, you're going to make 60 grand? And he's like, yeah, but we used to make more. And I'm like, I've been working on this short sale for like 8 months. And I'm kicking in to pay off the freaking lien. And I've been calling the bank every like 3 days, getting a status update, and I was like doing the short sales myself. I didn't have like a team or anything like that. I'm like doing all this crap by myself. And I was like, okay, I need to start flipping houses. And that's what like got me into actually flipping houses, because I'm like, dude, I'm working for 6 to 8 months to make 4, maybe 8 grand, because the banks don't even like fully pay you. They'll like set like, all right, you're only paying 2% commission. If you double end it, you get 3, and then the homeowner needs help and like all this crap. And then that's what got me into flipping houses, actually, was
That's
like pre-foreclosures.
Yeah.
So, all right, back to you. So you do those first 2 deals with pre-foreclosures. You're like, I'm going to be rich. Like, then what happened?
Well, with pre-foreclosures, there's all kinds of different situations. And I start running into situations where people have probate situations, or they filed bankruptcy, or whatever the case may be. All these different scenarios where it's like, oh, I actually have to learn something new every time. It's not like I can just get them to sign a contract and assign it. It's like, oh, they have real problems.
Yeah, they have a second mortgage, and now,
And I didn't have expertise in those things.
Yeah.
So then, of course, you have to go build what I call a power team, to where it's like you have a really good title company that can stop foreclosure sales and get things closed quickly. You have a probate attorney on speed dial. Hey, this is their situation. Can you kind of give me an idea on what they need to do? I'll explain that to them, and then I'll connect you, and you can do business. Sometimes people needed to file bankruptcy because there was no time to do anything. So we just ran into all these different scenarios. So for years, it was kind of just a learning ground to where, I was doing really good on the deals, but it's like every single time there was a new thing.
Yeah.
And it even surprised me to this day, after doing hundreds and hundreds of foreclosure deals. It's like, wow, that's a new one. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
So just fun times of stacking skills.
Yeah. And the whole time you're flipping and wholesaling, how long did you do this for?
The pre-foreclosures?
Yeah.
I've been doing them for 6-7 years
Oh,
now.
so you're still doing them today?
Oh, yeah.
Got it. So I want to go into how you scaled that, because it is a lot of work, but I want to tell you one more story.
Okay.
So I decide, all right, I'm going to start flipping these properties, right? Because I didn't even know what wholesaling was. So I'm like, realtor. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to flip, right? So then I meet this investor that he specialized in working with NODs or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, we'll partner up, just bring me your deals and we'll do 50-50. And I was like, okay, great. Like, I could do that. And he didn't understand, because I like just met him, that I was already like getting them very often. So I brought him like 3 deals right away, like back to back to back. It was like I had one in Rancho Cucamonga, one in Colton, one in Moreno Valley, and I think one in Chino, like super quick, like within 7 to 14 days, right? So when I say I bring it to him, I'm like, I'm not even listing it. I'm like, hey, I got this lead. This is what they want. Like, what are we gonna do? He'd go over there, get him under contract to buy it. He did that 4 times super fast, right? So I'm like, all right, this is great. Like, now I'm gonna start learning how to flip houses from this guy. So then I'm sitting in his office one day and I'm like, man, I'm so excited. Like, I did the math. I'm going to make like 100K and you're going to make 100K. I've been doing short sales for so long. I'm excited to see how this goes. And then I remember he gave me this look. He's like, wait, you're going to make 100K? And I'm like, yeah, because, we're doing 50-50. So I did the math, like we should both make 100K. He's like, oh, you can't make 100K. And I'm like, why not? And he's like, well, you didn't do anything. And I was like, well, I brought you the deals. Yeah. And he's like, well, sometimes deals, he said something like, sometimes deals make sense and then they don't. So we're going to have to renegotiate. So I'm going to pay you like 5 to 10K on each.
Ouch.
And I was just like, you can't do that. And he was like, well, I could do anything I want because we haven't signed anything and everything's under my name. And I was like, okay, like, and I literally didn't know what to do because we had no contract. We had no agreements. He was way older than me. He was like 56 years old. I was like in my early 20s still. So I was just like, I didn't know what to do. And he ended up like, he paid me on like 2 of them. And then the other 2, he didn't even end up paying me. He's like, oh, we lost it or just some BS. But I was just like, I didn't want to argue with him. So I was just like, all right, whatever, dude. But But then eventually I learned how to like structure deals and buy them myself and all that stuff. But I guess, how did you scale working with pre-foreclosures? Because it seems like there's not that many pre-foreclosures in general.
Yeah.
So how are you doing 150 deals a year?
So in our market, Kansas City, every market's going to be different, but we have probably 60 to 80 at any given time that have an active foreclosure sale.
Yeah.
So you were talking about notice of default, which is another awesome list. That list might be anywhere between 100 and 200 at any given time. Imagine they get behind on their payments, something's happened in their life, but a lot of people are like, oh crud, I need to solve this. Or maybe they had direct pay and something went wrong, and then it's like, oh, let me catch it up. So a lot of those are going to be solved, but there's probably in our market 200 to 300 of them at any given time.
Yeah.
So even if you get a fraction of those as deals, you can have a really lucrative business. And you saw, just like I did, I was knocking foreclosures. At the time, I wasn't aware of notice of default yet. I was just talking to the ones that were really close to being foreclosed on.
Yeah.
And I started working notice of default probably 3-4 years ago. And I'm like, look, there's a subset of people that they're behind. There isn't a foreclosure sale yet, but they're a responsible person. Just something has happened, and they have to solve this now. Like they cannot sleep another night until it's figured out. And I was like, I can definitely get those under contract. Those are pretty easy. Where are the other contracts happening? Well, the other contracts are happening within a couple weeks of the foreclosure sale. People wait till the last second. They take action then. So it's like, oh, right at the beginning of notice of default, you called them day one, basically. Right at the end. In the middle, are there contracts? Yeah, there are contracts, but they're more, they don't happen as often. That's kind of more relationship building and things like that. But how did I scale it? At the very beginning, there was no technology. There was nothing. All I knew was Zillow.com. Right? This is the very beginning. I knew nothing. We all started green. At the very beginning of my career, I was doing all the work. Like, you have to start somewhere. And you got taken advantage of with a few situations because you didn't know to put it under contract the right way. We all experience these pains that then lead us to elevate ourselves. It's just kind of a rite of passage. But anyway, I would get on Zillow. I would write down maybe 10 or 15 houses that I found that were in pre-foreclosure. No CRM. No nothing.
No Podio.
And I would just be like, oh, that house looks like one I'd want to buy. Let me write it. I don't know about that house. I'll just skip it. So it was purely preference at that time. It made no sense, but that's how I was doing it. So then I would go out. I would knock the houses. Sometimes I would talk to people, set up another appointment. Sometimes they'd be vacant. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll write that down to research it another time and see if I can find someone. But that is not scalable, right? Maybe you can get a couple deals a month, which you can earn a really good living doing a couple deals a month. But in terms of really helping a lot of people, it's not going to work. So then over time, it's like, well, how am I going to scale this? Well, I spend a lot of time on data and finding the data and getting on all these websites and all that. I don't really want to do that anymore. I actually hate it. So I'm going to hire a VA. Then all of a sudden the VA is like, there's a lot more sites out there that have this information than Zillow. So they started going directly to where the notices were posted. The attorneys would post the notice of foreclosure. It's like, oh, there's a lot of them out there. So they would gather this information. Then we figured out how to put it in a CRM. And then we figured out, oh, I could put a map application with my CRM and have all the different properties upload, and I could do routes and different things like that to hit all these houses.
So you were door knocking them all.
I was door knocking them all, and then if I didn't get a hold of someone or I found out that it was vacant, it's like, oh, I'll go back to the office and I'll cold call them and things like that.
That's funny.
But then what really scaled it was these vacant ones. Imagine your home's in foreclosure. Are you wanting to leave there?
Leave there?
Are you wanting to sell your house initially?
Probably not, but eventually,
not.
yeah.
Do you get them under contract? Yes. But then you have to find these people housing. You have to do all these things that are kind of difficult. Well, the vacant ones, someone has usually passed away or there's a traumatic event to where they can't be there anymore. And I found, I wonder if anyone's going after these because a lot of times they're really, really hard to get a hold of. So that's when you start figuring out, oh, someone passed away. It had to go through probate. The heir didn't know how to handle that. They didn't know how to pay for the probate. So they just gave up. It's like, oh, well, I reached out to them, and they're like, yeah, you can pay for the probate? Yeah, let's do it. And then you'd get really big deals that way. So I found through deep research and different things like that you could get a bunch of deals as well.
Got it. So out of your 150 deals that you're doing a year, those are all pre-foreclosures?
No, probably about half.
So you're doing like 75 deals a year from pre-foreclosure.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And then the other half would do traditional methods, TV and pay-per-click and PPL and all those things. So
got it.
I've always envisioned niche lists as kind of a bolt-on. If you're new, it could be your whole business.
Yep.
For sure.
It's a great way to start.
But if you're a seasoned investor, you have a big team and you're doing all kinds of deals, you probably don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So for example, 2020, 2022, there was a ban on foreclosures because of COVID.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't allow that to happen. It's like, well,
yep,
that's
lost
a
half
problem.
your business. Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like, oh, we had the rise of the hedge funds.
Yeah.
So it's like I had to find new ways to get properties, and then I could pass it through to them. So you always have to have options on how you can get deals. And now foreclosures are back in effect, but we still have all those other lead sources too.
What about? Okay, let's go through your current business. Like, what does that look like? Like, what is your team? All that stuff.
So right now, I have 3 acquisition guys. I have a transaction coordinator. I have a CFO. I have a technology guy. Happens to be my father. He was a programmer in a past life, and he was the financial guy, but he didn't want to do that anymore, so he just moved over into tech. So I have a free tech guy.
There you go.
Pretty great. I have a project manager and several more people that I'm not thinking of at the moment, but 13, 14 people.
Oh, yeah, you have a big team.
Yeah.
What about on the 150 deals, how many are wholesales and how many are flips?
You know, we went away from wholesaling for a long time just because we were buying these foreclosure houses. Imagine you get it under contract 5 days before the foreclosure sale.
Yeah.
Is it kind of hard to assign it in that period of time and really trust that buyer is going to close? So we just, for our peace of mind, we're taking all those down. Fortunately, we had the private money to handle that.
Yeah.
So we kind of got away from wholesaling. It's like, you know, these properties take 2, 3, 4 months to capitalize on.
Yeah.
It would be nice to get back to wholesaling. So we've gone back to that a little bit, but I would say 30 to 40% of our deals are wholesales. The rest of them we're taking down.
Oh, so you're mainly a house flipper.
Yeah.
And then do you own rentals?
Yeah, we have like 23 rentals.
How come you don't have more rentals? Because I would imagine like living in like a place like Kansas City, that would be tempting. Because I want to go to Kansas City. I don't know if it's Kansas City yet, but I'm doing a trip across America where I'm going to go look at all these cash flow markets. And I would think if I was there, I would want to like get a whole bunch of units and stuff like that.
We didn't start acquiring them till a few years ago. We were generating a bunch of cash, and then the tax man was coming, and I was like, I'm really tired of working until June to pay the IRS. So we started looking at the tax benefits and started doing it. It just hasn't been a huge priority. I don't enjoy the rental game so much.
I hate rentals.
I kind of have the immediate gratification type thing of wholesaling and flipping, but we've kept, a couple dozen of ones that we really like.
Just single families?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, so we're like the same age. That's crazy. So, okay, so let's break down your team. So you said 3 acquisition guys. Mm-hmm. Like, what do they do? Like, how do you pay them? Like, what's their day look like?
So I have one acquisition guy that primarily focuses on inbound. So your PPL, PPCs, TV, direct mail. He handles all those.
Probably your best guy, probably.
Yeah. So I have 2 other guys that focus on niche lists. So they're out there door knocking and cold calling and tracking people down and trying to generate leads that way. They're all paid a small base. Yeah. Not anything significant, but enough to pay bills and not have to worry about that. And then they are paid on a escalating commission tier to where the more money that's earned on that property, the higher commission they get. Yeah. So all of them have a little bit of flex on what they get paid. But
what would you say the commission range is?
In terms of the percentage?
Yeah.
10 to 20%, depending on the deal and how big it is.
Yeah, that's pretty, that's kind of like industry standard, kind of, and then I guess, walk me through, your sales process, if you can.
So pre-foreclosures are completely different than a normal house. Yeah. Because imagine me calling you and saying, hey, I can give you a cash offer. I'll help you move out right away, and you can get a little cash in your pocket. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, does that work sometimes? Sure.
Yeah.
But you have to see yourself. I want to position myself as a trusted advisor more than anything. So I have a framework of going through their 5 options.
Okay.
I call them and be like, hey, look, my name's Michael. I just noticed your lender was giving you grief. I'm sure you're getting blown up by all kinds of other people. I just wanted to walk through your options and see if I can provide some value. Immediately, they're like, oh, well, that's a little bit different than everyone else. I guess I'll give them the time of day.
Yeah.
So I walk them through all their different options, of which there are 5 that I go through. There's more options out there, but those are the core 5. So number 1 is, hey, you could reinstate the house.
Yeah.
What does reinstatement mean? Oh, you're behind 6 months on your payment. Maybe you're $6,000 or $8,000 behind. Do you have that right now?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no. If I did, I would pay my mortgage. And then you say something like, hey, you don't have the money. Have you spoken to family, friends, coworkers? Can you tap into your retirement plan? Is there anything you can do to come up with that money? Sometimes they'll say yes. Encourage them to pursue those, but then set a micro commitment of next time you're going to speak. Sometimes they'll just be like, no, I have no money. There's no options, nothing. Okay, they've disqualified themselves from that option. I didn't disqualify them. They did. So then you go on to the second option, loan modification, short sale type of thing. You've done that. It's like, have you spoken with your lender?
Yeah.
Are they willing to modify your loan, kind of wrap what you're behind into your loan? Maybe over time you can figure this out and get back in a safe financial position. Yeah, I called them. I don't have a job. It's not going to work. Yeah. My old interest rate was 3%, and they're trying to make me pay this ungodly amount. 8%. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So they've disqualified themselves again.
Quick question. Are there still loan modifications or no?
There are, and they're harder to qualify for.
Got it.
So imagine someone can't afford a 3% interest loan from 2020. Well, 6-7%, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I just go through all the options. That way they truly feel cared about. Like, I'm seeking options for them to fix it on their own. Yeah. And it's not just self-serving.
Got it.
So loan modification doesn't work. Option 3, I phrase it, this is my least favorite option, but it's effective. Chapter 13, bankruptcy. Yeah. It will stop the sale, but you have to understand the ramifications of what will happen. It'll be on your record, 7 to 10 years. It'll hurt your credit. Anytime you want to get maybe a future rental or a new car or anything, it's going to be more difficult. And just imagine if you file bankruptcy and then you kind of get passive again and don't take care of the situation, it's going to wrap around again. And it's going to go through foreclosure, except then your reinstatement fee is going to be higher. Yeah. It's going to be harder to get a loan modification with bankruptcy on your record. Yeah. Just be very careful with that. And then they're like, well, that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. And they still have to pay their arrears.
Still have to pay. Yeah. So then you get to option 4 and 5, which is what we hopefully want to guide them to. Cash sale and subject to.
Oh, okay. So you could do a lot of subject to.
So that's how all my rentals are acquired, subject to through pre-foreclosures. Got it. Because when we started acquiring them, the interest rates didn't make sense for Burr or whatever. Yeah. I was still able to acquire 2 or 3% interest loans through sub 2. Cool. So that's how we got going on that.
Got it. And then who do you say you work for? Because I'm sure they're like, are you a realtor?
So I just tell them I'm a real estate investor, but I specialize in helping homeowners in this situation. Yeah. Because I wasn't in foreclosure back in the day when I was a teacher, but I was about a month away. So the next month I wasn't going to be able to pay for my mortgage. Yeah. And I tell them, I haven't been in this exact situation, but I've felt the sting of having no money. And I know what that feels like to not really have any options. Yeah. And it provides me a lot of emotional income too. Yeah. To help people in that situation and treat them right and guide them through all their options. And sometimes I buy the house and I make money and that's great. But sometimes I just enable you to stop it on your own just from education. And I'm happy with that as well.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we used to do pretty much the exact same thing. Be like, oh, we can help you refinance potentially, walk through the thing, go on the appointment, look at everything, say, hey, you might qualify, we'll submit. if it doesn't go through, potentially we could do a short sale or whatever the case may be. So yeah. So I guess, is there anything else with the pre-foreclosure stuff before we go to the marketing that you think people should know?
Oh, there's we could go on for days and days, but for this podcast, it's probably good.
Yeah.
About marketing.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about like the main things.
Yeah.
So marketing, right? So you said you do PPC, PPL. Do you do texting and cold calling?
So we did texting and cold calling for a long time back in the heyday, like 2019, 2020, where I could send out 100 texts and set up an appointment or two and go get a deal.
Yeah.
Those days are gone.
Yeah.
And can you still text and cold call? Absolutely.
Yep.
It got to the point where I was having to change my messages and filter things to, keep up with the carriers and things getting blocked. And I just didn't like the cat and mouse. I know many people are still doing it at a high level. Mm-hmm. I just didn't see it as a long-term play.
Yeah.
So we gave up on that and cold calling. But we still do pay-per-click, PPL, TV, direct mail are our prime ones for direct to seller.
Got it. So let's break all four down. Yeah. So we'll start with the easiest, like PPL. Mm-hmm. Who do you use and what KPIs do you typically try to see from that?
So we use the normal ones that everyone uses, property leads, the need to sell my house fast.
Yeah.
All those ones.
Yeah.
We're on there. And there was a time when PPL was a lot more fun than it is now.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Like when we started, we could get leads for my primary county is Jackson County, Missouri, and Kansas City. Yeah. And you could get leads for $75 and they were fire.
Yeah.
Every time you called, they're like, yeah, I just filled that out. I need to sell my house right now. Like, please come on over. It was the same thing with texting. It was just like, wow, this is great. Yeah. Well, then there was more awareness. More people got into it, and then it got saturated. And then these companies are having to support the demand for 50 investors in a market that want PPL. And over time, those prices went up $500 to $600 a lead now.
That's crazy for Kansas City.
There's a lot of competition.
Yeah, we're paying like $375 to $600.
And there's some markets that are some counties that are a little lower, but the prime ones, they're pretty competitive.
Got it.
And we found that, are there still deals to be had? Of course.
Yeah.
But they're not as cut and dry.
Yeah.
And people might say, well, I want retail or I want this. And you have to have the ability to discern, like, should I go out to that appointment? Probably. Do I have a way to monetize that deal that maybe is not a traditional fix and flip or wholesale? Like, can you do innovation or can you do different stuff and monetize the leads? Yeah. So you're having to become a lot more skilled. We talked about skill stacking earlier. Yeah. Back 3-4 years ago, you didn't have to necessarily be really good at your craft to get a lot of deals and make money. Right now, there's a lot of competition. The dynamics of the market are a little bit more challenging. Yeah. So you have to have all those skills and have, high functions and systems to keep going like you were.
Got it. And I guess, like, what are you seeing, like, as far as, like, cost per acquisition and, like, how many leads does it typically take you to get a deal?
So I'm not sure on how many leads to get a deal. I know we're $5,000-$6,000 per deal. Oh, wow. So we average $25,000-$30,000 a deal. Okay. So about 5x.
Like a 4 ROAS, 4 or 5. Yeah, I think that's interesting because I thought those numbers would be lower because it's Kansas City, because that's kind of very similar to California and Las Vegas.
Used to, it was always $2,000 or $3,000 per acquisition. Yeah. Maybe I would make 20 or 25, and it was like, 10x return, amazing. Yeah. But no, Kansas City's definitely had more and more people that are coming into the market. Maybe it's because everyone's like, that seems like a great cash flow market. I'll come in there. Yeah. So people are like, well, it doesn't make sense on the coasts anymore. Maybe I'll come into Kansas City. So we see all kinds of out-of-state people now. Yeah. It's definitely more competitive, but, there's still plenty of deals.
Yeah. Okay, so that was PPL. What about PPC?
So we haven't done that as much lately. Okay. We've always outsourced it to third parties. Okay. For a while, it was great, and we would get $150, $200 a lead type thing. We were happy with that. But then the same problems happened. Yeah. Everyone wanted PPC. The same services were providing it to 5, 6, 8 other people in our market. And it was like, everyone else has the same ad.
Yeah, it's cannibalizing.
This is fractionalized now. It doesn't make sense. So we went away from it, and then hadn't really found someone in-house to do it. So we've kind of nixed it for now.
What companies have you tried with PPC?
I won't go down that
Okay.
path. I don't want to talk bad about anyone. There are companies that are really good.
Yeah, not bad. I'm not saying who's good
but
or
then
bad.
the growth almost happened too quick for
Yeah.
them, and then they can't handle it. And,
Yeah.
but PPC works.
Yeah.
It's just, cost per lead's a little higher than it used to be.
Yeah. I am starting to work right now with PPC Force. So their founders in San Diego.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm expecting like a 4 ROAS, like I understand the cost per lead's going to be high, but I don't want to get like a bunch of leads. I'd rather get like less leads and try to monetize
I think I got
them.
spoiled over the years with the niche data to where the data was free. The
Yeah.
leads are free. Does it take time capital? Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I have to pay $400, $600 more for that, $400 or $600 for a lead, I'm just like, I love these free ones. So maybe that's skewed kind of my thought process and continuing on some of these. But
yeah. Okay, so that was PPL, PPC, and then you said mail and TV.
Yep.
So can you break down like mail, I guess?
So mail, we're sending out about 5,000 pieces a week.
Okay.
So 20,000 a month. What's that? $10,000, give or take.
Yeah.
On the spend, we probably make 4 or 5x return.
Yeah. Okay, and then like who are you mailing?
Some of just kind of the basic ones that you'd think, high equity, absentee.
Yeah.
We really like large land properties. We found we've done well. So imagine 5 to 25 acre house properties with a house on it. We've gotten really good on those deals. Older demographics.
Yeah.
Nothing groundbreaking, just being consistent.
And who do you guys use for mail?
Yellow Letters HQ.
Yeah. Do you guys get data from Dataflick?
I have never used them. I've heard good things though.
Yeah. Okay. And then do you know what you're paying for your mail pieces?
I want to say, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I know it was floating 45 to 50 cents a piece.
Yeah. And then I guess the last one is TV.
Mm-hmm.
So you're running TV, but you don't have PPC going with your TV?
Yeah, you could say that, but we've spent up to about 16 grand a month on TV before.
Yeah.
We did lower it down this year in anticipation of the elections and things like that. So we're spending about 8. I wouldn't say our return is real great on TV, but it's hard to attribute every deal you get. So I think we're probably 3 or 4x on TV. But like you said, sometimes they may look at you on TV and they're like, well, let me research them. Let me go to the website.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a piece of direct mail that goes to them. Oh, I recognize those guys from TV. So it's hard to attribute every deal to TV, but it at least generates some revenue, so we keep it on.
So you are, though, doing PPC just for your TV, right?
No.
You're not.
We're not.
Do you think you're losing out on deals because of that?
Probably.
And you don't care?
I wouldn't say that I don't care. It's just capacity, trying to get to everything,
Got it. So I've done TV, and then obviously Ryan's done TV for a long time. Do you work with Darren and Doug? Is that who does your TV or no?
So I tried to work with Darren. I think that our market was blocked with them.
With them, yeah.
So I can't remember. I think we used 10X TV.
Got it, yeah. So what I've learned with being around Ryan, and then I took over Ryan's TV, is that like half of the leads that we get are from PPC, but they're like, they saw the commercial and then they go to the website.
Interesting.
So are you even like at least making it so if people search your name, you're the first one that comes up or no?
Yeah, we have, I know we actually may be doing PPC for our name.
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing broad PPC, but there may be at least company-specific names
that
are PPC. I'm pretty sure that's true.
Yeah, I would check, because I know when I was doing it, I was like, oh, I don't want to do PPC. And then they're like, dude, you're going to miss out on like half of them.
Right.
And then when I turned it on, I started getting deals. I was like, oh, okay, you have to do both. So usually they go together.
Sure.
But all right, anything else on marketing you think?
We could go down this path for days.
Yeah.
But,
you think we covered it?
I think so.
Okay, so let's say I was like, all right, Michael, you have 30 days to get a deal. You have to get a deal, and you'll make $1 billion. But you have no money.
Yep.
What would you do?
So super interesting.
Yeah.
I used to be the primary acquisition guy. I love being in the living room.
Yeah.
And I've kind of moved to more of the, hey, I manage our guys and I try to support them with training, and I do social media and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So our deals have dipped just a tiny bit just because I was really good at that. Just like you were really good in the living room, I imagine I was really good at that, and sometimes hard to teach that. So my father is still in the business, and he's like, I'd really like you to get, at least a couple deals a month.
Yeah.
Just to keep the cash flow really good in the company. And
yeah.
So he's like, I want to challenge you to see how fast you can get a deal.
Oh.
And I was like, bet. So I got on our foreclosure list. I identified an outlier. Like there's Kansas City where everyone's going to go door knock. Everyone's going to cold call. Everyone's going to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose this house probably 45 minutes outside of town that had a bunch of equity. I looked on Zillow, and it had the management stickers of the lender. It's like, oh, it's vacant.
Mm-hmm.
I looked up kind of both of the owners, found out that they had been divorced. One moved to Springfield, Missouri. One moved to Phoenix, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't get a hold of them. Their phone numbers were all disconnected. And I'm like, well, let me hit them up on Facebook. So I messaged the wife. She answered within like 2 or 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, my husband and I, we obviously don't get along. We got divorced, but we still have a reasonable relationship. We both want to sell. We kind of just gave up on the house, to be honest. Mm. So I was like, do you want to sell? Yeah, I'd sell right away. I'd sell for right what we owe. I don't even need to make any money. I just want to be done. Mm-hmm. She's like, here's my husband's number. So I gave him a call. Hey, you interested in selling the house? Yeah, I'm wanting to sell right now. Mm-hmm. Here's actually the code to the house on the front door. Just go out there, take a look at it, see what you can offer. We went out there and looked at it the other day, and we're going to lock it up. This happened within 15 minutes.
Damn, so you can get a deal in 15 minutes if you wanted to.
Not every person's going to be able to do that, but when you're focused, and after a while you do hundreds of these, you start identifying the patterns of where would a deal be at? Yeah. Where are less people competing for that deal? Yeah. And then I go right there, and then eventually you find a deal. But, if you do niche lists diligently, within 30 days, if you have it, 3, 4, 5 hours a day to dedicate to it, maybe you don't have a deal, but you definitely have good conversations, and you have some prospects. And maybe you're not ready to close those deals on your own, but that's when you find someone in your market that is more seasoned, someone like myself or you. Yeah. It's like, hey, let's do JV on this, and then you actually sign the document. Yeah, you get a JV agreement signed. Then you come in there, and it's like, oh, you see a seasoned person talk to the seller, and you see that they can sign the contract, and it's like, oh, that unlocked, because it's not rocket science. It's just you need that proof of concept.
100%.
So within 30, 60, 90 days, someone ought to have a really good opportunity on their hands. For sure.
I think 2 things. The first was, where do you get your data from?
So right now, well, I'll tell 2 ways because we're getting in 2 ways. Yeah. For the longest time, I've had virtual assistants do it, $4, $5, $6 an hour, right? And they're just gleaning foreclosure data. They're going through all the different sites, seeing, oh, did this auction get canceled? Did it get postponed? Is it still on the list? That way, our guys have the most accurate data. It's updated every day. Yeah. But we're actually developing technology behind the scenes that gathers data nationwide through AI. Yeah. So no matter what market you're in, what state you're in, we'll have daily updated foreclosure records. Yeah. Includes, all their relatives, what their equity is, lots of different information that can help people get more deals from it.
Doesn't Property Radar do that already?
So Property Radar gets information that's probably 30 days old, give or take. Yeah. So oftentimes by the time Property Radar gets me that information, was that house in foreclosure? Yes. Yeah. Did that foreclosure already happen? Yes. Yeah. Or they give it to you right at the end to where you can't, develop that relationship. So ours is updated daily. So people will get information in their portal every single day on the new notice of defaults, the new pre-foreclosures, any updates on when the auction is or what the opening bid is, things like that.
What about, and then what I was going to say was the second thing was even though that guy ripped me off, I'm grateful because I learned like I need to get JV contract signed, like number one. And then I watched him do what you're saying you do. Yeah. And that's what helped me like be like, oh, okay, like this is how you do it. Because I'm a visual learner, so I have to like see things in order for me to do them. Yeah. So he ripped me off, and it was terrible, but I'm still grateful because
he probably ripped you off for what, 80 grand or something like that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that was your price of education.
Exactly.
So it enabled you to make a lot more than 80 grand.
Yeah. So. And then I know there's going to be people listening to this that be like, oh, well, Michael's a genius. He's super smart. Like, of course he could do it. Like, you know, what are some of the struggles and stuff that you had to go through to get to where you're at?
Guys, with real estate investing, it's very possible that you may have to be backed into a corner to get success out of yourself. For me, it was my teaching retirement was gone. We were down to a couple $100 in my bank account. I had to produce. I went through a lot of adversity, and I still do, as do you. So it's never going to be easy. You just got to expand your time horizon for success. But that's why I always love that my origin story was flat out, I have no prospects. I have no leads. I have nothing going for myself. I took my time and my effort, and I went and door knocked a house. And I got the deal. I had no knowledge before that. Yeah. Maybe it was a little bit of luck. Maybe it was a little bit divine intervention on God guiding me there. Maybe. But the reality was I had nothing. And then all of a sudden I took a piece of data. I went and made something of it, made $50,000. Is everyone going to get something? Like you got your notice of default within the first couple of days, right? Yeah. I got mine on my first attempt. Is that likely? No. It's not normal. But what if it took an industry average of 100 knocks to get a deal? What if you knocked
1,000?
What if you knocked 5 doors a day?
Yeah.
And it took you 20 days to do that. Would you be happy if you had a deal in 3 weeks? I would.
Yeah.
If I was new.
Yeah.
So is everyone going to have to do a little bit different amount of work to get their first deal? Yes.
Yeah.
But once you get that, you have that proof of concept, and then that gap will shrink down to where it's not 6 months to get a deal. Now it's 30 days, and then 30 days will turn into 2 weeks, and then you'll have something every week. It's just a gradual process.
What about, have you ever took the predictive index? What is your profile?
I've taken it. I think I'm a maverick. It's been a long time since I've looked at it.
But. Yeah, so for people listening to this, like the predictive index is like a personality test. I'm a maverick, and then Ryan's a maverick too. Yeah. So that's interesting.
And that visionary type?
Yeah. What about, you talked about God, right? And you felt like God gave you a message. Can you speak to that?
So I often pray before the day begins. It's like, Lord, I'm going into investing today. Please guide me to someone that needs my help the most. I don't know where they are. Just please give me something. And there will be many times to where he'll say in my head, I don't audibly hear him, but sometimes it'll be like a thought that is not mine. And it's like, go to this one. And will that happen for everyone? No. But I intentionally seek him. I spend time with him every morning. And I put my heart into not, hey, bring me this deal so I can make some money. It's guide me to someone that either needs you or I can provide a lot of value to that needs help.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not a money-making opportunity. Like, for instance, yesterday I went out on a run, and it's really hot. It's 100 degrees outside. I'm from Kansas City. It's still 50 or 60 degrees. It's not 100 degrees. So I was hurting, but I was going by the 7-Eleven yesterday, and the Lord's just like, go in there. And I'm like, why? I don't want to go on the 7-Eleven. So I go in there. I actually grab a bottle of water for myself because I was pretty hot. And there was this lady that was trying to steal some water. And then the cashier got onto her and was like, you can't do that. I would like to let you, but I'd get in trouble. And her whole body language just slumps. Like, she's not wanting to steal. She just has no money. She's thirsty.
Yeah.
And so I was able to just pay for the drink. And she looked at me and she was like, you're an answer to prayer. And I'm just like, that happens all the time to me. And it could be really small things. Maybe it's a deal. Maybe it's something like that where it's just like, be obedient. and let God work. And that may be a secret sauce to niche list a little bit, to where, of course, I want to make money. I'm an investor. I want to make a lot of money. But at the same time, I'm there to serve. And if you come at these situations with the right heart, oftentimes you might get the deal, but you also might get an opportunity to witness to somebody. Yeah. So it's also my mission ground.
What about, how long have you been Christian?
My whole life, since I was 6.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And like, how important is your faith in your business and to your life?
It's my compass for everything. I run everything through the Lord. Actually, every morning I'll study the Word, and maybe I'll take a particular verse, or maybe it's just something on my mind. I'll make a morning story. I think Ryan does something similar. Yeah. To where he kind of posts that in the morning. I've done that for a long time. That's actually my most engaged with story every day. People are like, I needed that today. Yeah. Type of thing. So I do it for me as an accountability thing to be in the Word, but I also, it helps other people too. But
got it. What's your favorite Bible verse?
Man, I love all of Proverbs. I couldn't say just one. I like to study wisdom, scripture. Yeah. Things like that.
So why? Like, can you explain, give more context? Why Proverbs?
You know,
you got to assume people just don't know.
Yeah. So people may know the Bible story about people getting issued different amounts of money, different amount of talents, right? One was given one was given 2, maybe one was given 5 or 10. I can't recall the exact numbers. But the one that got the most, he went and invested into his craft, into whatever he did, and he's like, I got a 2x return. And the master's like, well done. Good job. The other person that got 2 or 3 talents did the same thing. He got a little return. Well done, servant. And the one that got 1 buried it in the ground and didn't do anything. He's like, well, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Here's it is back. And he basically gets scorned. Like, you didn't even put that in a bank. You didn't earn any interest. And I've always taken that story seriously. Like, God's given me talents in my life. Maybe it's less than some other people. Maybe it's more than other people. But I take it seriously on how can I get the most out of the Lord, what he's given me to impact people for his kingdom. And I think about that all the time. So I'm constantly thinking, you know, what wisdom do I need to learn? What is it that I'm missing? What people are in my life? Where can I gain wisdom from them? So it's just been important to me to, you know, grow, not just as a believer, but grow as an entrepreneur, grow as a father, grow as these different things. And it just requires constant input of new wisdom. So that's why I always go back to Proverbs.
What do you think is like, can you talk about being a father and a husband? Like, what were some of your strengths and like challenges that you had to work on?
That's still a challenge. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I have all these crazy ideas, and constantly my brain is going crazy with new things. So to say that I'm a perfect husband or father, that's a far cry from the truth. But it's just a 1% better a day thing. Like, am I going to get all the way better today? No. Yeah. But over time, I have that. But it's the biggest challenge is just being there when I am there. So I imagine you as a maverick, Ryan as a maverick. We're constantly present, but maybe we're not present. Yeah. And I struggle with that. My wife gets frustrated with it, and I'm constantly on my phone and things like that. But, you know, you just got to make these things a priority. I need to do a better job. But love my family, love them to death. I would do anything for them and provide for them. But, you know, that's one aspect that I need to work on.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And everyone's trying to get better at it. I think recently what I've been doing is almost like, it's like apologizing, but just being like, I'll tell my wife like, hey, like, I'm sorry that sometimes I'm like super blunt, direct. Like, I just don't know how to express myself.
That's
so
how
hopefully
I'm so blunt. And she's like, I'll say exactly what I'm saying. She's like, do you have some sort of hidden agenda? No, I'm literally telling you what I think.
I just want you to cook. I
want
promise.
No drama. I want nothing. When I go to the refrigerator and I say, what's for dinner? It's not, my wife is bad for making dinner. It's what is for dinner. Yeah. I'm so blunt.
That's so funny.
There's no side language at all. So.
Yeah. So for me, just literally, I don't know if it's apologizing, but being like, I'm sorry that I really just don't know how to express myself. Yeah. I'm not trying to be rude. I really love you.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that. And then
I'm glad I'm not alone.
yeah, literally yesterday, or it might have been this morning, she hugged me. She was like, that was like, I really know you love me now. By me just apologizing like that, like, hey, like, just so you know, I think I don't know how to express myself, but I really love you and I'm doing the best that I can. And then I just like walked away, and then I just like, she was like in love with me. I was like, all right, I need to do this again.
Maybe I'll try to put that into the repertoire.
Yeah, try that. So for the people watching this on YouTube, we're going to leave your Instagram and everything in the description of this video. But for people listening on audio, where do they go?
Yeah, you can check me out on YouTube, Michael D. Franke. Instagram's Michael_Franke. Either of those two places.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. And everyone listening to this, thank you for listening to the Wealthy Investor Podcast. If you haven't, subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.